Hello and welcome to this game review. In this one, we'll talk about some tactics, especially tactics involving pins, as well as deflections, and even simple captures. So it started as a Caro-Kann. Of course, black plays c5 in 2 moves, but this variation has a solid reputation, because now this is going to be somewhat of a French defense, but the bishop will be still able to come out to f5 because e6 is not played. So c3 is played by white, but now black takes. In general, we should not get rid of this tension while this knight is on b1. This is the general rule, because now this knight will be able to develop to its best square on c3. Instead, we can play knight c6. White is not really capturing here anyway, and when this knight gets developed, then we can take. But this is okay. And bishop d3. Now, black gets rid of his bad bishop, and now he has a perfect French structure. Now he just has to develop the pieces. Knight f3 is played. Black gives this check, which is an interesting idea. White replies with bishop d2, but this really helps black. In general, we have to understand that white has more space with the pawn on e5, which means white wants to keep more pieces on the board, and also white wants to attack on the king side, as the knight cannot go to f6 and black isn't developed, so white should keep more pieces on the board. And the more pieces get off the board, the better the prospects are for black in the endgame, as the pawn on d4 is weak, and if there are no more pieces on the board, it will be quite difficult to defend. So this is why white should play something like king f1, playing h4 and developing the rook through the h-file, attacking on the king side. This is the standard way to play. Or knight c3 to at least get the bishop for a knight instead of a bishop. But after this, now the play is quite simple for black. He develops the pieces, and here white starts attacking, but now there aren't that many pieces to attack with. Knight g6 defense from checkmate with tempo, and the white plays the other knight to f3 and h6, but this is a terrible blunder. At the moment, white is not really threatening anything, and black can continue his development. And for example, here queen a5 is a nice move, similar to bishop b4, trying to invoke some exchanges. Or after queen d2, we can also just take the pawn on a2, which is probably the main thing. We should always check the checks, captures, and attacks. And taking this pawn on a2 is already somewhat significant, as white's attack on the king side is not that strong at the moment. Or for example, after rook c3, we can even play rook c8. This also frees up the square on f8 for the knight in case we need it. It also will defend the h7 checkmate, and we're trying to just exchange more pieces and create weaknesses. Instead, after h6, black simply did not consider his opponent's forcing moves, and here if we look at the white checks, captures, and attacks, we will find the move knight e6, deflecting the pawn to e6, after which the knight is hanging, and black simply lost his f7 pawn for nothing. Instead, knight h3 was played, which is a horrible move. Now queen b6, and now black is in control again, as white's pieces are horribly placed. a3, knight a5, very standard play on the queen side. There are very easy squares here. Queen d3, and now black plays this move knight b3 very quickly, but it's not clear why we're not simply taking a pawn. And such questions should be really fought through in our games, because after all, we're doing all of these positional things to get material, basically, right? So why not just take material? Now we have 2 on 1 on the king-queen side, so we have an easy plan to create a queen here. And also we simply put our queen on a better square. Next can be rook fc8, for example, after castling. And black is just winning, as he has a pawn for nothing. White's knight is on h3, so he's basically down a knight for the moment as well. And there's no problems. Instead, knight b3 attacks the rook, but the rook simply moves. And also it has attacked the knight, which black ignores after 30 seconds of thought, rook fc8. But this kind of shows that we're not really thinking about the opponent's forcing moves. And here the only move is, of course, to move the knight, and there was now no reason to go here. After this, white can just take the knight, and it's game over. Black can give this check. After king d2, both the rook and the queen are under attack. So this is what decides games. We cannot allow our opponent to simply take material for free. This is the absolute most important thing before checkmate. But white also doesn't see this. Now black exchanges, plays rook c8, which is a natural enough move, but we should always consider our opponent's ideas. and here the opponent has a nice move rook b1, after which this knight is pinned, and if white gets to attack it, we will lose this knight, so black tries to defend it with a4, but white could have played a4 himself to stop it, and the next move is queen c2, and it's very hard to stop this idea, so black should be losing a piece very soon. So when we see our pieces like this, we should be very careful about what can happen to them. The knight on b3 has done its job. We can put it back on a5, maybe put it on c4 to attack the weakness here, or simply to have a nice square on c4. But after this, white doesn't find a4, and now after a4, c4, this is a horrible blunder. Black can win in a variety of ways, the simplest being to take this pawn, and after knight c4 to pin the knight. And now the knight has to go back defending the queen, and after all of this we can just take the pawn on d4. Even if there wasn't such a move, black is completely winning because he has a 2-on-1 majority on the queen side. He has the only open file, which we can use as well, and the queens were exchanged. Otherwise, we can also just play queen a6 here, threatening to take the pawn on c4, as it is now pinned diagonally. It's not clear how white is going to try to survive. For example, after this, we even have this nice move to fork the pieces and take back with interest. After knight e7 though, after c5, now white gets at least a strong pawn here, and he will likely get back the pawn on b3 after queen e5. But this is also good for black. Even though he is a pawn down, this pawn should drop, after which this one will also drop. Meanwhile, this knight is still out of play. But in the game, black plays this tricky move knight c5, which kind of works if white takes the queen. Now we take this queen, but if somehow black forgot about taking the knight, after which this rook is defended, so black has just given up a piece for 2 pawns for no reason. Instead, just move the queen. But after this, white doesn't see it, and now the game is easily won, because black has taken a pawn for nothing, and now he takes more pawns, and he promotes the b pawn, so the game ended quite easily. But again, checks, captures, and attacks, it's not clear why we're not looking first at checks and captures and attacks. For example, here instead of knight e7, queen a6, or taking and then queen a6, we should always look for ways to win material. And here knight c5 was a nice try, but this does not work, as white can simply take back. So maybe black only thought about the move rook takes b6, after which this combination works. But if we see that white can take the knight, we do not play this move. So we should not be optimistic about what our opponent will play. In the game this worked out, as white did not find this, but had he found it, we would be in a bit more trouble.